You're listening to the Virtually Free Podcast, a place for all you digital nomads and freedom chasers out there get the real talk on what it's like to make a living online. Want to ditch the 9-to-5, vacation on your terms, discover the ins and outs of freelancing? Then you're in the right place. And now your host, Amy Damone.
Welcome back to episode 12 of the Virtually Free Podcast with your host, Amy Damone. Today on the episode, I have with me Lisa Wells, who is a marketing operations and systems guide for female coaches, consultants, and virtual assistants. As a consultant and trainer since 2005, Lisa currently offers time-saving one-on-one coaching, proven forms and ebooks, and practical courses to grow your business and simplify the marketing and technical side. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to this week's episode of Virtually Free. I have the wonderful Lisa Wells with me. Welcome.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you today. But before we dive in, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey from beginning a VA business and how you now help VAs become unstuck?
Okay, so when I always tell this story, I always feel that it's, like, oh, it's just a run-of-the-mill thing. But I always get people coming up to me afterwards saying, that inspired me. So it all started when I'm from California and my husband's in the military. And he was approaching 16 years in the military. So we were thinking, oh, we're going to finish up in California and he's going to retire. But he gets orders out of the blue to move to North Carolina. And I was so not prepared because kids are in school. I'm 2 classes away from graduating college. A lot of people go through this where they're like, the timing was so bad. And so we get the orders and there was just no jobs where we were moving to. Southern California, there's lots of opportunities and there's so many places you can work, so many industries. North Carolina, where we're moving, not so much. And I was doing some research and I came across this site that was for military spouses becoming a virtual assistant. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Never heard of it before. And then I soon learned there's an entire industry. And I thought, this is what I've always wanted to do, always wanted to start my own business. And for me, it wasn't really that hard. I mean, I was kind of forced into it. I didn't really have a day job to transition out of. When you get orders, you have to pack up and move in 3 months. So we packed up and moved in 3 months, and I started my business the month before we left. And you started getting business cards, websites done. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do, thought I was all prepared because I thought, oh, I work in a business. I know how to deal with people. It's not at all like what I thought it was going to be. So we moved and it took a while. It took me 6 months to actually get that first client. And so that's why I tell people don't be so hard on yourself when it does take time. I mean, you're building a business, you're building a career, you're building your life. That doesn't happen overnight. And the people that do have that happen, they're like the pink unicorn. So don't be too hard on yourself. And then nowadays I help other VAs, I think just kind of being as a mentor, that you can have a business and build it up. And even 12 years later, it's going to evolve and don't worry about it. And I help them with tools, how to package up your services, how to get started, how to deal with clients. I show them examples. I would not call myself a coach because coaches like help you birth the baby kind of thing. I am not trained as a coach. I don't have the patience for being a coach. I like to tell people what to do. So that's kind of how I help VAs. I kind of, sometimes I overwhelm them by saying, this is what you need to do and giving them a list of stuff to do. And they're like, yeah, I'll take it slow. And, which I get frustrated because I'm like, but you have so much potential. So I'm trying to temper that part of how I deal with VAs. But now I have training programs and and online store and e-guides and training manuals. That's how I help VAs.
That's awesome. I'm laughing in the background because that's very much my mentality is like, I don't want to be a coach, but I want to tell people what to do. I think it's the micromanager / project manager in me that is just like, I like bossing people around, but
Yes.
some people I find in the VA industry, and I love that, you started and are still in the VA industry, because a lot of the speakers on, excuse me, a lot of the speakers so far that have been on Virtually Free, they are, content writers and coaches and, sales funnels, magicians and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're all in pretty much the same kind of container in online business. But I love talking to other VAs because it's like a subculture of the online business world almost. So I'm very excited to be talking with you. So I know this will be for VAs, this will be for a lot of different people in different industries for the question I'm about to ask, but I know, especially in the beginning, people are paralyzed by, oh, how am I going to make this much money in this? How am I going to get clients? How am I going to get that? And a lot of them realize that they're stuck in some sort of faction or whatever you want to call it. So what are some really telling signs that you may be getting stuck for the people that aren't as aware that they are stuck?
Oh, good. Because I've been in that space. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, in 12 years, I've been, gosh, I think I can name that space. It's like a room. So some telling signs for me are when things just feel too hard. If I know that when I'm in that state of not having clarity, things look fuzzy, then I start with the FOMO. I start feeling like things I'm fear of missing out. And then I end up chasing things that aren't any help. They cost me money. And then I start feeling like maybe this wasn't the right path for me. And then I start feeling like an imposter and that everyone else is smarter than me. I mean, that's my usual journey. Things start to feel too hard. I don't feel clear. Somebody comes up with an idea. I chase it. I end up losing money. And then I'm like, well, that was a big waste of time. So when it gets to that space, I'm getting a lot better about just kind of sitting back and understanding this is definitely a part of being in business. Everybody goes through it, and meditating for a little bit and just kind of thinking, is this the right way to go? Because that's the worst place to be in, is when you're feeling this isn't working. Why don't I just look at the classifieds for a day job? Because this building a business thing is just so hard. That's kind of one of them. That's definitely a telling sign. And then what I call stepping on the gas, stepping on the brake at the same time. You're definitely going to be stuck when you do that. So this is an example. Here's an example. So Sally VA wants to take her family on a trip. She's been dreaming about this trip. She wants to make it this amazing adventure. She wants to travel in luxury, nice hotels. They want to have a personal guide. She is thinking big. This is how people are supposed to be thinking big, thinking about living that, luxurious travel life, nothing is overlooked. And she totals it up and it's going to cost, I don't know, $10,000. That's what these kind of trips cost, right?
Yeah.
So she's thinking big. She's thinking, she's got full speed on that gas pedal. She's going, same thing. This is an analogy for business. She's going full speed. And so she thinks, you know what, I'm going to have to make some money to finance this trip. So how do you do that? You increase your rates. So that's what her decision is. I'm going to increase my rates. And I feel like it's not that hard to increase your rates. You tell your clients you're going to increase your rate. You choose a date when they go into effect. You change your packages on your website. It's not that hard. But then, like so many people I've seen, that you can kind of guess what's going to happen. She starts pumping on the brakes because she's feeling like, well, she starts rationalizing, I'm going to lose clients if I raise my rates, or maybe I need to learn something more, or I don't want to leave my dogs when I go on vacation. Or she starts thinking, well, maybe my family's not even going to like what I planned. And this is an analogy for so many things. This is why people, they start off thinking big, and this is what I want my life to look like. This is what I want my business to look like. And then they start they're, I don't know what it's called after the ego, but they start, your body wants to be comfortable. And the minute it starts to become uncomfortable, then your body starts trying to take care of itself. I don't know what that's called, but it prevents so many people from thinking bigger, is what I was trying to get at. So that's the other thing about feeling stuck in your business, is when you're stepping on that gas and stepping on the brake at the same time, of course you're going to be stuck. So that's kind of once you recognize it, it's easier to go through. But I think a lot of people get to that place where they're like, oh, I know I need to build my business, but I don't want to go to an event. Events are big and they're noisy, and I'm an introvert and I don't want to spend money. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but you have to do some things that you're uncomfortable with.
I love that you use that analogy with the raising the prices, because this is something that happened to me about 3 months ago, where I was all geared towards it. I was like super excited, and then I did it. And then I started having conversations with my clients, and I like freaked out a little bit. And, I got over myself, and I was able to, move forward and raise my prices. But it's really scary, and it's really interesting. I don't know if it's a chemical reaction or what it is that happens in your body, where one day you're like, yep, I can take on the world. And the next day your body is literally like, no, that's unknown. Come back. It's safe here. And you're just like, okay, let's do that. Yeah. So it's such a perfect example. And it happens in so many other places as well, as you were saying. And you gave us a lot of examples. And I've seen it happen a lot. It doesn't happen with VAs either. It happens with everybody. Mm-hmm. But I have another question for you, because those are like the big, really obvious ones. Are there any subtle ones? Because me as a VA, and maybe this is more of like a personal, I would like to know if I'm stuck somewhere, but I'm super analytical, and I was going to say pretend, but I like to think that I'm a pretty self-aware person. But, as there are self-aware people, our mind is able to trick us. So I'm wondering if there's any like super secret signs that you're unstuck that maybe aren't normal, or not normal, but are a little out there in this kind of discourse.
I think because I'm the same way, very analytical. I always have said I'm a behind the scenes, left-brained, operational kind of person. By no stretch am I any kind of woo kind of spiritual. And I consider myself an atheist, very not religious, just very scientific based, right? Mm-hmm. And I started, once I started opening up my mind to the possibilities that other things are out there, other things are working. And it took me years to get to that place, because I'm like, no, I'm such a skeptic. But I think opening up the possibilities to that there is other things, and that your actions are having an effect on other things, and synchronicity and all that kind of stuff is really, it's been very interesting. And this has only been for the last 2 years, has this been really happening. So one of the things that I've been, instead of reading, philosophical by the masters, like Kant and Benton and philosophy kind of things, which is more up my alley, I've been doing a lot more of the, law of attraction kind of things, and just kind of seeing things unfold to see where it's going to take you, and stop trying to control everything. I think that's what I think people like us try to do, because we do like things to be very orderly and organized, and freak out when things aren't that way. But, giving yourself permission to be, do, and have what you want, that you have just as much right and quit being deferential to your clients because you think that because they pay you, you're less than they are. But you have every right as every other human on this planet to live an abundant lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing inherently bad about it. And once you kind of start thinking about it in those terms, I think just things you're just more open to the possibilities.
Awesome. So I feel like that's a perfect segue into my next question for you, is you were talking about how instead of reading Kant and all the, I like Aristotle and, the really the old philosophy guys. What kind of books, or not type of books, like what are some title of books that you're reading right now that are helping you help your clients in this journey?
Oh, I just finished a book last week. I loved the book. It was You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And I read her first book, really liked it because it does a lot of the law of attraction. She doesn't come right out and say it, this is a law of attraction book or anything like that. But if you're a fan of those kind of things, or higher power is another thing, and you want to attract abundance, it's a great read. And I mean, her approach is a little bit unconventional. She frequently mentions the word universe, so it is a little bit woo-woo, but her methods, they're so motivating. She's hilarious. I mean, I laughed out loud so many times reading the book, very relatable. And she's a really good storyteller. So she'll put it in terms of ways that I can understand, because I've read a lot of these other books. If you ever heard, I mean, even Tony Robbins does a little bit of the law of attraction. Oprah, Super Soul Sunday, those kind of things. They all have their way of trying to relate something. But for some reason, this book related it to where I can oh, now I get it. Now I get what they're trying to say. Because she was literally poor, didn't have two nickels to rub together, and the woman is now a millionaire. So she was just like, it wasn't anything. I didn't need to learn anything new. I didn't need to, run right out and attend yet another webinar like so many VAs do. They're like, just in case I need that tomorrow, I'm going to attend this webinar, learn something. She was like, everything you have right now is in you. So just shifting your mindset just a little bit. So I love that book. Highly, highly recommend it.
And I'll be sure to include that in the show notes. So for anyone that's listening that wants to take a peek into that book, you'll have easy access to it. But Lisa, I've also read that book and I absolutely love it. I think I read it about a year and a half ago, and I remember being in the bathtub and just you're right, like laughing out loud. She does a great job at, making it kind of a very, not to use her word, but like a badass book. It's really wonderful. And I think for me, because I know I read a lot about law of attraction, and all those kind of, more woo-woo kind of things. And it's complicated. It's multi-level. It's multifaceted. It's really, really confusing. And Jen Sincero has done an amazing job at, taking it and being able to, tell us common folk what law of attraction really is.
Yeah, because I don't even think she mentions it to the whole book. She doesn't come out and say, this is the steps to doing law of attraction. It's more about, and when you read the book, everybody, when you run out and read this book, she's got the story about the goats, and how she handled, setbacks and, whether it's mindset or financial setbacks or dealing with family members. It's such a fun book. I think you really like it.
And there's also some really great exercises in there as well. And I feel like this episode has turned into us sponsoring this book. But
I know, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize at all. It's actually a great book. And I urge everybody listening to also go out and grab a copy. It's really, really interesting. But I was wondering if you have exercises to help get unstuck as well, or, whatever that you do that helps you fire up creativity and break through kind of that inner child comfort zone.
Yeah, I I do. So I think the first thing is, and I don't know why this is, but when I talk to people, and well, I'm guilty of it too, but get clear about what you want. So what type of business do you want? What's your ideal day look like? What types of clients do you want to work with? How much money do you want to make per month? What kind of services do you want to provide? Because I imagine nobody starts off thinking, wanting to work with nightmare clients or undercharging or working nights and weekends, which is what happened to me because I didn't sit down and really take a good look at what I wanted. I was like, oh, I want to start a business and I'm just going to put it out there and whatever comes. So I definitely tell people, get clear about what you want. This kind of goes back to law of attraction because what you focus on is what's going to start showing up for you. So I think it's just a lot of times people, they just haven't taken the time to sift and sort, what do they like? What do they not like? Because you should be clear in that part of it. And if you're not, this is why things are starting to show up and you don't even know why you feel the way that you do. So first step, get clear so you know what you're working towards, have that vision. And then the next one, and this is what I do with my clients a lot, with helping them come up with a roadmap, because what are you going to do that will get you to your goal? When I ask them that, what are your goals? Because you have to know where you're starting from in order to know where you want to go. And they're like, I don't know what my goals are. So you have to know that. And it's going to require some serious thinking, because not only are you coming up with short-term goals and long-term goals, but also think about the roadblocks that are going to come up, because those roadblocks are going to get you every time. The minute something becomes too hard, or it didn't go the way you wanted, or maybe you're seeming to attract the wrong types of clients. We've all been there. And like I said, you're taking every free training that comes along, or somebody's going to tell you something that you should do. And you're starting to you have that feeling in your gut, like, I don't know if that's really the best thing I want to do, but you listen to what they're saying, and you have to kind of know what are the roadblocks. So do we have time for another quick story? I want to
Absolutely.
Okay. So this actually happened to me. I was at an event conference, those 3-day conferences where the coach tries to get you to buy her program on day 2 at night.
Yes, I'm aware of those.
Yeah. So I did. I went back to the room and called my husband, and he was like, "Are you on crack? Because those things are not cheap." So I signed up for this for a year-long coaching program. Lots of money. And one of the perks was that you got to travel up to where she lived, and you're in a room with all the other people who bought the coaching program. So, which is great for a VA, because not a lot of VAs do that. And if you're in a room with 100 people who need VAs, totally good for you.
Oh, yes.
So at this point, I was trying to transition away from, long-term clients doing the back-end shopping carts for them. And I wanted to do more one-on-one packages, optimizing their business kind of thing. So a little bit of shifting away from VA work to more consulting work. And one of the people in the room was, asking the coach, like, "You're talking about a VA. What's a VA?" And she's like, "Hey, are there any VAs in the house?" And of course, nobody raised their hand. And I'm like everybody at my table who knew my background, was like, "Oh, raise your hand. So I thought, okay. So I raised my hand. She goes, "Come up to the mic, introduce yourself." I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'm not a public speaker. So I went up and kind of explained what a VA is. What do they do? I had literally 30 people like rush over to the table afterwards saying, "I need your help." But at this point, I was already charging more than $75 an hour. I did not want to do yet another newsletter for somebody or set up their AWeber. I just wanted out of that. And but I had, everybody coming up to me saying, oh my God, you're going to be so full after this event. You're going to have all these clients. And in my head, I'm like, but I'm trying to get away from doing this. So I didn't want another, because they were like, oh my God, so I can afford like 25 an hour. And I'm like, oh my God, no. But they kept telling me this is what I should do. So I spent the whole time building these little $250 packages to do their newsletter for them and do some setup programs. And not one person bought it. So I should have listened to my gut and said, I'm sorry, but if you need help with streamlining and optimizing your business, I'm your girl. But if you need a VA, here are some resources for you. I could have easily done that, but I had listened to everybody tell me what I should be doing. And this was, I'd be wasting opportunities if I didn't jump on this. And so I wasn't listening to my roadmap. And if I had it out in front of me, or, like my coach told me when I joined Weight Watchers a couple months ago, she's like, you need to list those whys, because the minute you start feeling like this is too hard, I want to go back to eating bagels and cream cheese, you have to know what your why is. And it's part of the whole roadmap and the roadblocks that you're going to come up against, and knowing what to say when that happens, listening to your gut. That's what I feel a lot of people spin their wheels so much doing, when it's just, having things on paper. For me, having things on paper really help, but understanding what you're trying to accomplish and knowing that those are going to come up. Okay, that's my story. I'm done.
No, that's awesome. No, and I like that you mentioned that, because I feel like I see it a lot, that people get so hung up on, well, like, this person's saying that I have to do this to make so much money. This person's saying this if I want to stand out in the crowd. And like, yes, there are learning experiences from all these people, but the reality is 99.9% of everybody in online business got into it in order to make a life on their own terms. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that when we're making decisions. And I know for me, I've done a lot of things, like you said, like you were explaining about, where it's like, I know that the industry expects me to do this, so that's why I'm going to do it. Or this is industry, like, standard operating, procedures or whatever. So I do it. All like, this is like things like how I grow my business, and not in my client's business, but like how I grow my own. And a lot of the times sometimes you get to this place of being stuck because you've taken on everybody else's why. So I love that you mentioned that. And I know you said before off air that you ramble a lot, but I'm loving this conversation. There's so much gold from everything you said, and it's so important that people really listen to this, because I don't know how it was at your beginning of building your VA business, but for me, I was winging it for way too long. And it was because I was like, oh, I'm not a coach. I'm not this. I'm not like, I'm not going to be a business. I'm just a freelancer. And we think that we're kind of immune to all the issues at some points, or at least I did anyways. But, I was quickly slapped in the face and reminded that that's not true. So there's so much to take from this conversation. And I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And as I always ask my audience, or not my audience members, my guest speakers, is I would absolutely love it if you could leave the audience with some words of wisdom.
Oh gosh, I think, back to the roadmap, what will get you to your goal? I think if you can just sit down and figure that part out and, be open to what happens. I think you're going to find that you're not going to be hitting your head on the desk because yet another client showed up that you didn't want, or that you're not making the money that you want. I think just, figuring out, what do you want out of your business? And same thing happened to me though, Amy, is that for so long, people thought, Lisa, if you don't have a team, you're never going to have the business that you want. And for years, I thought maybe I should have a team, but I didn't want that. I love the fact that I can do what I want. I'm basically the solopreneur. I don't have to be responsible for other people. I love that. And it doesn't have to be all about the 6-figure stuff. Don't buy into that. So the money you desire is here for you, the clients you want, the opportunities, the lifestyle that you crave is all here for you right now. You just have to kind of, I think, wake up and let it in, because we all show up with unique desires and gifts and talents. And as you journey through life, and your only job in life is to discover what yours are and nurture them. Don't, like you said, don't take on other people's things, their whys and their suggestions. Because when I love to sit around and do Infusionsoft campaigns all day long. Is it going to get me to 6 figures? Maybe. But for me, that is where I'm just so happy. Time is flying by, and I know that I'm in complete alignment with that. And that's all you can really ask from your business is, are you happy? Does it make you happy? And if it doesn't, do something to change it.